Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. On this podcast, we go week to week watching some shows with you and giving you some recommendations along the way. In today's episode, we'll be discussing briefly, we're not really watching a show week to week at this point. We are watching Welcome to Derry. The main show we're watching right now, week to week, is Pluribus. So do check up on our coverage there. We will briefly discuss the latest episode of Welcome to Derry. But primarily, we'll be talking about another Stephen King adaptation today. It is The Running Man. For this show, I'm joined once again by Darren.
Yeah, how are you there, Victor? Yeah, it's a Stephen King renaissance this year, isn't it?
It is. Mike Flanagan, who, of course, has done multiple Stephen King adaptations at this point, is already made a 5 or 6 part series for Amazon Prime of Carrie, another adaptation of Carrie. And apparently that was a trial balloon because Amazon wants to make The Dark Tower into a long-running series, which apparently they have just started producing. So they must have been very happy with the Carrie film, series, I should say, which is coming out in 2026. And hey, did you read any of The Dark Tower? Are you interested in that?
I have not read any of The Dark Tower. I know that it's a sprawling epic, and I know they've tried to do it before. And I know it has characters from other Stephen King novels. And I don't know who this Mike Flanagan is. I've heard his name in bits and pieces. I don't think I've seen anything of his, but yeah, good on him.
Did you see Dr. Sleep?
I have missed Dr. Sleep.
Okay. Yeah, if you see that, check out the director's cut if you can find it. It's definitely the better version, but he did direct that. And if you have never seen this, I highly recommend it. Not a Stephen King adaptation, but on Netflix, there's a series called Midnight. Actually, you should see his Haunting of Hill House adaptation.
Heard of it, haven't seen it yet. And Midnight Mass, I know Netflix is trying to get me to watch it, and I've gone, oh, Mike Flanagan. So yeah, it's sitting there waiting for me to watch.
You should check out Midnight Mass. I think you'd really like that. It's basically his version of Salem's Lot. It's not directly based on it, but it is really good and short. I think it's only like 5 episodes. But he made his reputation on The Haunting of Hill House, which I do not like to say. I don't dislike it. The second half of that season doesn't work as well as the first half, but there is an episode. There's basically they call it like the crooked neck lady who is haunting these little girls over the course of that series, and then we follow them. They get older and they keep having this. And there's an episode, I think episode 5 or 6, which is called The Crooked Neck Lady, when you basically discover what that character that's been haunting them represents, which is one of the most satisfying things you'll ever see. You're like, oh my God, it's like such an incredible revelation. I'm like, how did I not see this thing? It's incredible. And then the rest of the series can't hold up to that, but it is an incredible, like, it's just an experience to watch it. I watched that with my wife and we just turned to each other and we're like, holy shit. Like, how did we not see that coming? It's pretty amazing.
Oh, that's a good tip. That's cool. All right,
and also like Midnight Mass, also very satisfying. So, and shorter too, if you want to check that one out, but I highly recommend. And Flanagan's another character, by the way. Not all his adaptations work for me, but he's someone who like loves the material. If you hear him talk, he's so enthusiastic that, again, he's one of these people that I'm really rooting for. Doesn't always work for me, but I'm always rooting for them.
And if it's Amazon, they've got all the money. So exactly. Are they going to throw everything at this series?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because I was literally reading that interview right before we started talking, because there is a big question mark as to how much of that they're going to adapt. So let's start with The Running Man adaptation. Tell me your experience or your relationship with this intellectual property. I don't think you've read the story, correct? But you have seen the Arnold Schwarzenegger film back from the 80s?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was a big fan of Schwarzenegger in the 80s, and The Running Man was maybe not top shelf Schwarzenegger, but I thought it was pretty good, and I quite enjoyed the whole idea of these bounty hunters, or the hunters, tracking him down, and he has to survive 30 days. I think I have read the Bachman book of The Running Man, but this would have been in primary school or early high school, so I don't have a great memory of it. And I'm interested to see how the book differs to this new Edgar Wright movie, because I feel like the ending was changed quite considerably.
Oh, yes, very much so. So the Richard Bachman books that Stephen King wrote, for anybody who's not aware of this, he wrote these books very early in his career when he was he was not allowed by his publisher to publish more than one book a year. And we know that now that he can write as many books as he wants, he will oftentimes publish many books in a year. And that doesn't even include sometimes his short story collections, which I remember when I was a kid and that first Night Shift came out, that short story collection, which was maybe my favorite book of his because it was just so easy to read a short story here and there. They were still relatively rare. Now he's pounding out a short story collection every 2 or 3 years at this point, and at least one novel a year. So this is the pace he likes to write at. It's just incredible how prolific he is. They're not all good, by the way, but very prolific. But back in the day, he could only publish one book per year. So he started writing these Bachman books. And he was also very curious to see if he wrote under a pseudonym, if people would know it was him, and they found that pretty early on. It was in the early 80s. Those books eventually were all republished with his name on them, of course, became all very popular. And this one was published, I think, just about a year before the actual film adaptation. And that Schwarzenegger film came out the same year as Predator, which is like, Predator was when he really broke out as a more than just a generic action star. And of course, from there, he became the most, for a period of time, the biggest box office star in the world. But it was, for me, I saw it in theaters. I think I touched on this last week. I was a little disappointed when I saw it compared to Predator. It was not as good for sure. But it's an interesting adaptation because it really just barely takes the skeleton of the story and runs with it, really making it this playground where they're playing hide and seek. It's really like the American Gladiator show that came on later is much closer to that movie than the movie is to the novel itself. When I saw the original trailer, I was actually saying that I thought this was going to be closer to, and this is maybe a criticism, the sets in the trailer looked so artificial. I thought that it might be more contained the way that the Running Man movie was, the Schwarzenegger one, not realizing that this is an incredibly faithful adaptation of the Running Man until it is not at all an adaptation of the Running Man, which is really just the last few minutes. Before we get into any kind of breakdown, how did you like the film?
So I was a little bit apprehensive because I saw a few mid reviews that were coming out and I couldn't see it until late in the weekend on a Sunday afternoon. I went with my son and I thought it was wildly entertaining. I really enjoyed the experience in the cinema. I thought Edgar Wright did some crazy things with the camera and the sets, and I really enjoyed the evoking of like Paul Verhoeven films like Total Recall. Like
RoboCop with the advertisements.
Yes, love the advertising. There's so much product placement in this film and it works really well. And I also, it reminded me of the original Running Man, reminded me of Blade Runner in parts, reminded me a bit of a video gamey kind of thing. Great action film. I'm on board with Glen Powell. I know a lot of people are not. And apart from I thought it could have hit a bit harder in some of the satire. Didn't really, and it lost its way in the end. But great time in the cinema, I got to say.
Yeah, this film didn't work for me, but it's funny because in my Letterboxd rankings, I was just looking at them earlier today, but it's funny, like when I say a 5-star movie is like a perfect movie. So this movie, I gave a 2-star movie. This is my least favorite Edgar Wright film of all of them. And I've had issues with some of his other films previously, but I do want to, before people start thinking I'm being overly negative on this, my 2-star rating is that it's a film that didn't work for me, but it doesn't mean I hate the film. I literally have it in my description of a 2-star rating that it's like a film that didn't work for me. But if you're a real fan of this genre, you may actually like this film. Like it's like, so I'm like on the opposite side of not really liking it, didn't really work for me. But if you love action movies, or if you like certain aspects of this, specifically speaking about The Running Man, I can see the appeal of this particular film. And it's interesting. Like we just had the opposite experience where the Predator film worked for me last week. I'm on the opposite side of that, where Glen Powell doesn't always work for me. And I'm always rooting for him. Didn't quite get there for me here. Edgar Wright doesn't always get there. I always feel like his films lose energy. Even my favorite of his films feel like they lose energy in the third act. Same thing happens here. It just comes to a crashing halt. We'll get into it when we break it down a little bit more, but the energy just dropped at one point, and we have some of those same third act issues that he's had in the past that I've had with his films. And the last thing is I try not to see trailers if I plan to see a film. And I was on the fence as to whether I would watch Running Man or not. So I allowed myself to see the trailer for this movie. And I think I would have ranked this film slightly higher if I hadn't seen the trailer. Because as I'm watching the film, I'm literally waiting for certain things to happen. And I feel that by the time I checked off all the boxes from the trailer, I had seen the entire film. So it's one of those things where it was a bad trailer. And the vibes of the film, I never really gelled with it. I just never really got a handle on it. But I do think I would have bumped it up a little bit more. For me, in general, I thought the first act didn't work. It was very clumsy getting to where it needed to go. I did appreciate some of those things. I really liked the RoboCop call out of the type of advertisement, that world that they live in. And it has a very Verhoeven style to it as well. I like the call out to the original film in just the set design and the color of their costumes and some of the world building in general. I thought some of that was pretty cool. As a winky,
the Arnold Schwarzenegger's head is on the new
on
currency.
The money, on the currency. Exactly. Yeah. Great point. And then, but yeah, so I've read the book, right? So it was also like, okay, I know where we are in the book. It's very faithful going most of the way through. And then where things start to change, I have to say that the MVP for me in this whole thing is Michael Cera. As soon as he shows up, I think he's perfect for an Edgar Wright. Of course, he did Scott Pilgrim together. They did that together. So I think he hit the tone perfectly. And the film allows itself to have a little more fun at that point. And then all that worked. And then I'm not going to spoil anything here, obviously, not yet anyway. But then the third act comes. And by the way, pretty faithful to the novel once again. But it really, things just started to really slow down there. And I wasn't 100% on board yet. So it didn't quite work for me. But I can see the appeal of it. And I think most of the action's pretty good. But yeah, it just never gelled for me.
I'm going to say my MVP is Coleman Domingo.
Oh, he was great too. Yep, I liked
the
him too.
role fantastically. And the role of that kind of game show host that has power. I feel like he didn't have as much power as in the original film, but I just love that iconography, and it reminds me of Requiem for a Dream, where that game show host controls the narrative, and I think I've enjoyed Coleman Domingo in everything I've seen him in.
That was Richard Dawson, by the way, from Family Feud in the original.
And okay.
I remember when he takes like a dark turn. I remember seeing that in the theater and being really impressed. I'm like, I didn't know this guy could actually act. Pretty surprising there. And yeah, Coleman Domingo's good here. And as is Brolin. I think Brolin's very good too in the villainous role here. There's just the inevitability of like everyone's failure. He has this cockiness to him, which really works really well. In general, I'm a Brolin
good
fan.
as a villain.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's great and everything. I was a bit disappointed that who's the girl? Amelia Jones was not in it more, because we just saw her being brilliant.
Task,
and then she just came into this movie near the end. I was waiting for her to come.
There are multiple characters that show up just for very brief periods of time. And the actress, I forget her name, the actress who plays his wife, had a big breakout year, was one of the real standouts from Sinners. And again, very underused here in this film.
Totally. Yeah.
Which is, unfortunately, I have to say there's a problem with a lot of Edgar Wright's films is with his female characters. And I think he tried to correct that with Last Night in Soho, and that film doesn't really work for me either, unfortunately. So maybe we'll do like a power ranking of his films at the end here.
He hasn't got that many. Maybe we can go through them. But yeah, that Last Night in Soho was not my favorite.
Yeah, agreed. So, okay, let's talk about Powell for a little bit. He just hasn't really worked for me as a star. And he's obviously doing the Tom Cruise thing, and Cruise has been a mentor for him now as well. And obviously people are trying to make him into a star. We don't have a lot of stars in his cohort, his age cohort. And he's had some success, right? He had that romantic comedy from Australia, Anyone But You. Is that what it was called?
Anyone But You. Yeah. I got dragged to the cinema to see that.
I hated that movie. I thought it was terrible. But I liked Hitman, which he co-wrote with Linklater. And I saw his charms in that. I could see the appeal there. I didn't love the Twisters movie. I have to say that in general, I didn't really see it in this film, but in general, I have to say that I think what works for him is when he's angry, I buy it. When he's trying to be funny, he's working a little too hard. Like I really see that in that romantic comedy. It's like very tough for me to watch that. He's so desperately trying to sell those jokes, and they're terrible jokes. So don't get me wrong; it's not all on him, but it's just he doesn't have that ability to sell that for me. And then yeah, with Twisters, I think he has good chemistry with his co-stars. I thought in that romantic comedy, Sydney Sweeney, the lovemaking scene they have between the two of them there, it seems comfortable, right? And you can see where there's an appeal there, but just something for like that try hard thing he does takes me out of in general. But like I said, I really liked him in Hitman. I thought he worked really well. So I guess it really matters in what I'm seeing him in. To that point, in this film, I thought that those parts when he seems like he's about to snap, when he's angry, his performance works for me. I don't know if that says about him that maybe he maybe is frustrated himself. He's about to snap, but when he is snapping, it feels legitimate.
Yeah, he's not Tom Cruise. I did think his
He
best
can
role
run
is
very
Top
well, though. He
Gun
runs very well.
Maverick. He runs. You can definitely see that he's aping Tom Cruise in his run a little bit, isn't he? But I do think he's just got. Tom Cruise is not self-aware at all, I think.
Good. Yes.
Whereas
Good point.
Glen Powell is. So I think you can see that he is playing a role and he does have a little bit of just fun with it, which I appreciate in his performances. But yeah, I agree with you that he is not 100% in. But yeah, it was fun. He was funny in this role, and he's funny when he's angry. I don't know. I just think he's a nice guy. He seems like a nice guy.
He is a really nice guy, and everybody in Hollywood likes him because he goes out and he does the rounds. He shakes the hands. He goes on the talk shows. He's not like these people who like hate to do the promo junket afterwards. He does the work and on the set too. I listened to an interview with Edgar Wright and was talking about how he did almost every single stunt. Like if he could physically do the stunt, he did it himself. This is another Tom Cruise thing about him, until it was just like, no, you're not allowed to do that stunt because it's too dangerous. But anything he could do, he would do. And he trained for it. He trained for this for like months ahead of time. So he is really committed. And I admire that. Someone who really does the work. I love that, actually. And he seems like a really nice guy. Everybody loves working with him. And like I said, when he got to basically write his own script, him and Linklater working together on Hitman, I think he understood his persona perfectly in that film, or maybe Linklater understood it and massaged the material. And then his contributions were self-aware. Like you mentioned, I think he is fully self-aware of him as a performer, and that he has a dark side. Like you look at Hitman, and I think he hits all those notes. He loves putting on costumes and putting on makeup, and he does it in this movie too. So they baked that in there as well. Although that's in the original story as well. But another thing that's happened in multiple Glen Powell movies at this point. But yeah, maybe he's just too shiny for me. He's just too much of a performer where I can't buy into the stakes. And that's a little weird in this film for me too. I know I'm sounding much more negative than you are on this. I want to give you the opportunity to shed more positive things on it. But another thing that was a problem for me with this film is it's a little too glossy, because this is a really dark story, right? And the film does pull a punch at the end. We will spoil this, but we're not going to get to it yet. It does pull its punches a little bit at the end versus the original story, but it allows you to believe that the story is going to be extremely dark. And the fact that you're talking about, like, here is someone whose his life is at risk. His wife has to turn to prostitution to pay the bills. Once again, this is right from the book. And some really dark stuff happens later on as well. And then we're just in that Michael Cera scene, which is very fun and such a great action sequence and very funny. And that sometimes gives me a little whiplash watching this movie with those two tone shifts.
I've got to agree with you. It is glossy and it doesn't dig into those themes at all.
Right.
And I think that's why I enjoyed the ride a little bit. Obviously, some of my movie habits I'm really into when they go dark and they go into it. And I think the rating for this movie possibly was a bit high. Like it could have been a lower rating to let kids in to see it, I think, because it doesn't go dark at all. It is very surface level. But I think I enjoyed it. My son compared it to movies like The Fall Guy or Bullet
Mhm.
Train, which he loves his Nolan movies, but he also likes movies like that, which are just kind of action, big budget extravaganzas, which we see we see very few successful ones these days,
Yeah.
I think, and I think this is one of the more successful ones. But a lot of people disagree, and a lot of people didn't go to see this film.
Yes, that's a key point too. Is
Uh,
that it's I don't know how it's not going to be financially successful.
which is a shame, but I don't think this is going to be a franchise anyway, or I don't. It
Right.
doesn't feel
Right.
like a franchise movie. But I just loved. You didn't like the first third of the movie. I really loved it. I thought the pace was really incredible. The way that Edgar Wright moves the camera and the way that the movie just pushed forward and forward.
Yeah.
I liked when he was walking from the slum town into the town where, or the city where the TV shows are produced. I thought that was really cool. It's a cool vibe. There's a lot of one-liners. I liked, enjoyed the one-liners, and when they didn't show the kind of seedier side of his wife's
Yeah.
job, I was like, okay, so it's this type of movie.
Right.
It's not going to show us anything. I think it showed a pole dancer once, and I was like, looking to my son, I was like, oh, is it going to go anywhere? No, it didn't go anywhere dark or deep or nude or anything like that. It
Right.
was not interested in that. It was just interested in rushing forward and having these characters come in and do a whole bunch of work. Like Michael Cera did so much work in the short time
Yes.
that we
Mhm.
saw him on screen, and it
Yeah.
was a rush. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely that middle part starts to work for me. Even that has some problems, right? And this is right from the novel because there is, for those of people who don't know the basic plot, this person, he's like the end of his rope. You play this running man game. Every day you survive, the amount of money you can earn is crazy. Like in a week, it's not a huge amount of money, but in this universe, that week is like enough for your family to live off of for a period of time. And no one has made it for a full month. And well, supposedly. And then if you do that, then you get $1 billion new bucks from this dystopian future. We had the long walk. We went from walking to
Mm,
running. Stephen King adaptations
mm.
this year. So maybe the long walk becomes the Running Man someday. Who knows? But in this scenario, like basically no one survives, but your family gets money. But then, of course, their lives are in danger. That's where some of the dark subtext comes in here. Darren, is the fact that they explicitly say that we need to like protect your family because once they start collecting this money, everybody in these slums is like out to steal it from them and kidnap them and ransom them. So a pretty grim potential downside to this supposedly positive side of having somebody run on this. It is very antiquated that they should have updated it, I think, like made it something that is internet based, like it just like in the original book. They are talking about terrestrial television that everybody sits down and watches, like American Idol or something like that, which that time has changed. It would be more interesting if it was more of a Mr. Beast type YouTube show. And also that they have to like record these 10-minute videos of themselves to prove that they're alive. And it turns out it's actually a way for them to track your position so that they're always ahead of you. But they also have to like mail it to these high-tech mail slots that are available all over the place. Everybody apparently has a sensor in their house. If anybody sees you, they can push the button and they can earn money too. So it's another way to this totalitarian government can control you because you have your own neighbors turning against you. Obviously makes everybody distrustful of everybody. But it's just funny. They have these buttons installed in everybody's house. You just punch the button and they come running. It's just weird that he has to like mail out this disc, which once again made sense in the 80s, that these were little cassettes. So very faithful to the book, but not at all how this would work now, right? Like Stephen King wrote this before they knew what Wi-Fi was. I feel like they should have made it a little more contemporary.
That's a good criticism. Yes, it really is. People are sitting down in their lounge rooms watching this show on their old school TVs, aren't they?
Right.
It's funny, the long walk was criticized for being too dark,
Hmm?
whereas now the Running Man is being criticized for being too surface level. Maybe we
Yeah.
need like the long jogging man in the middle to really hit that vibe that we're after.
I want to see that game show, by the way, where you jog on the treadmill while you answer trivia questions.
The hamster wheel or something, yeah. A portly gentleman too, so it looked like he was, yeah,
I'm pretty
needing.
sure Mr. Beast has probably already done that.
Yeah, right.
Anything, I do want to talk about the ending, but anything else you want to mention before we get to that third act?
Nothing comes to mind. Sorry.
That's okay. There's so spoilers here, full spoilers. Honestly, I know I give away a lot of the plot there, but all of this is right in the trailer. And as a matter of fact, even beyond that. So I don't consider that spoiler, but I want to talk about the end of the film, which also I think is important and the difference between the book. So if you haven't seen it, or if you do plan to see it, you should dip out of the conversation now. Check the show notes so you can see the other topics, skip to those. I have a few questions for you. First of all, I want to rank Edgar Wright's films and his filmography with you. And then we'll talk about the box office as well. So we get to the end of the film. As you mentioned, Amelia Jones shows up. So great in Task. Of course, she has a big breakout. Again, underused. You have these incredibly well cast roles. Killing Michael Cera, that character dies in the book as well. Although he doesn't turn himself in. That's like a comedic touch here, which I thought was very funny, that he's like so desperate to get his revenge that he's like, ooh, I can get everybody here now. So all of that is very fun. I wish they had changed the story where he doesn't die, but they do kill him off just like he does in the book. Just like the book, everything that happens there, he kidnaps this woman. He lies about having that explosive. When you're watching the film, of course, if you're not familiar with the book, you think he might have it because there's that conversation he has with William Macy, another completely underused A-lister he put in there for one scene. But when he meets with William Macy, who sets him up earlier on with his fake IDs, that he does have the explosive there. So theoretically, he could have smuggled some out, or they could have come to some agreement. But it turns out, no, that's just a bluff, but it works. And he gets him on the plane. And then the same thing happens on the plane. They know he doesn't have the explosive, but he gets this offer. His family's already been killed off. And you now have this opportunity to become one of the hunters. And of course, it turns out that this prime hunter, played by Lee Pace in the film, was actually that first Running Man who made 29 days. And of course, he's the longest running. But he actually did survive. He didn't die. He had the exact same experience here. They faked his death and made him one of the hunters. He gets to have the same opportunity. He just has to basically kill everybody else on that plane. And this is the same offer that's made to the protagonist in the book. And once again, everybody, we're going to spoil the very end if anyone's still around. And he does exactly this. He kills everybody on the plane. Then he takes control of the plane itself. And in the book, he is flying back to the headquarters and he crashes the plane into the headquarters and kills the CEO and all these people who've tormented him, but also destroys the tower and kills thousands of people. But it's this very nihilistic ending where it's like, well, there's only one way. I'm going to kill everybody who runs in the studio and everybody who's currently in that studio right now, all the innocent people as well, who he doesn't see as innocent at all for being participating in this as audience members. And that's the end. And I was actually shocked when I was watching it because of these tone shifts. I'm like, are they actually going to do this ending of the book? Like, holy cow, that is pretty crazy. But of course,
he talks about it a couple of times during the film. He's going to burn this down. He's going to burn you all. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they definitely set us up.
Did this happen in the 1980s movie?
No, none of this happens in the 1980s movie. Yeah, in the 1980s movie, it is all takes place on the set. They're all hunting together. They usually will kill each other off. They only want to have one survivor. It's all like inside of this giant obstacle course, inside of this giant building. Eventually, he starts working with the other contestants. The audience starts to, as we see here too, the audience starts to root for him. So there's this uprising happening outside. And in the end, they basically infiltrate the building and they eventually break into Richard Dawson's, his private quarters, and they shoot him like 400 times. And that's the end.
Televised? And that's televised to everybody?
I think it is televised. I actually didn't remember that, but I'm pretty sure it is televised. So that's like how he basically saying like, you're canceled or whatever. That might not have been his punchline, but it would have been a good one, actually.
So that 80s movie is different to the book where they fly into the tower, whereas this movie is set up for that to happen, but doesn't quite go that way.
And then they set it up two ways. You either comply with us or we're going to make it look like you tried to crash the plane into the tower, but we are just going to shoot it out of the sky. In the book, they basically say to him, look, your family's dead and your life is over, but you can live in luxury if you just comply with us. And this very cocky attitude that in the end, everybody gives in. We know that this is what's going to happen. And then he seems to be complying, but of course, he's actually just wants to crash the jet into the tower. In this scenario, they're saying to him, like, we're going to fake that you are going to crash into the tower, but only so that we can shoot you out of the sky. And then we think we're seeing that exact thing happen. But then, of course, we find out this streamer that we saw earlier is actually informs us in this like cutaway, very Edgar Wright style cutaway, where it's telling us that, nope, he escaped. And then we're like, well, is this just like a popular mythology that this has sprung up around this guy? The film puts such a thumb on the scale. And I really didn't appreciate this, by the way. We couldn't even leave it as just some tall tale. We had to actually explicitly see that he's out there and fighting the good fight and still supporting his family and paying her grocery bills secretly.
Well,
and
see,
where did his money come from?
as...
Where did he get this money, by the way, that he's underground and he's still rich? I don't know how that happened, but...
Yeah, right. I took it as it could have happened or it could not have happened as well. I took the ending, that might have been a fantasy that he saw his wife. It was shot in a way that was just too fantastical to be an actual real reunion. So I took it as the streamer or the YouTuber making these conspiracy videos that maybe he did die in the crash and but his legend lives on in a zine. I haven't seen a zine in 25 years, so I don't know where these zines are coming from. But his legend lives on, and he's the fuse that lights the resistance.
Yeah, but the ending really doesn't work for me for multiple reasons. I don't mind them changing the end, considering how bleak it really is. And I don't think that would work in a $100 million movie. But then to come up, I would like the fact that this Twitch streamer, like you said, did he survive? Did he not? He's out there fighting the good fight and he's fomenting a rebellion. That sounds great. But that's not the end of the movie. Then we see his wife, and that whole thing is shot from her point of view. So that is not a fantasy anymore. We are now, I think, very concretely seeing that he survived. So we can't leave well enough alone there. And then we can't just leave it as this is the fantasy of, and now the rebellion begins, because then we see that Brolin ends up on stage and he's there. It's not even that the crowd tears him apart. It's that he is there and shoots him and kills him. He's like, I told you I'd get you. I'm like, oh, come on. This is a terrible ending.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't take it as literal as that. It was a shadow that came from the crowd that shot Brolin, even though it was clearly Glen Powell.
He shows his mask. He pulls his mask down. And he even says, talks to him. He talks to him before he shoots him. Yeah, if he had left it all in shadow and as he's dying, he thinks it's him. Or here's people complained about I'm not going to explicitly spoil the end of The Long Walk, but I'm just going to talk around it. So you might consider this a spoiler as well. So you might want to skip a little bit ahead. But people complained about the ending of that film. And that's a film where people are saying, that's ridiculous. If that happened, blah, blah, blah. He just walks out of the crowd and no one does anything. And I'm like, that's a perfect example to what we were discussing just moments before, of an ending that you can be like, that does not feel real to me. I think that is a fantasy of what would have happened rather than actually happening. This is very clearly telling us that this is what happened, which I feel like, I know that Edgar Wright's not the bleakest filmmaker, definitely not. And I appreciate that about him. And I don't mind him lightening up the tone at all. But I thought this is not the way to end the film in a successful way, I don't think.
Yeah, I got to say that the last third, didn't super do it for me. But yeah.
And even as much as I liked seeing Emilia Jones, that there is 40 minutes of film when he gets in the car with her, and then they're like shooting at him, and then he's like telling her that, see, look, now, don't you see they're manipulating you? Look, they manipulated your video. I'm like, there's 40 minutes of movie there. That's a lot of movie for her to drive down the road, get onto a plane at 40 minutes. That's a lot of movie, man. It's a lot of movie.
It's too long. It's certainly too long. Yes.
Yeah, there's not much happens. They drive the car very slowly for 20 minutes. And then there's 20 minutes on the plane, which is also way too long. 20 minutes on the plane is a long time for that final sequence. But just getting to the plane is 20 minutes. And that's pretty crazy too.
I like the design of the plane, but yeah, I've got to agree with you. Yeah.
So I think we agree. And I think that's what's interesting. That's what's curious about it. I think we agree on most of these things. And this is like my 2-star rating, where I'm like, if this works for you, you're going to like this movie. But it didn't work for me. And I think you probably agree with all the same flaws I have. It just worked. And this is basically the same conversation we had last week with Predator, where I'm like, yeah, I agree with all the critiques you had. But I just bought into it. I just enjoyed the action, and I enjoyed the little team building and all that stuff, which you thought was hokey, understandably, because it was. But I just didn't mind it. I enjoyed that rearrangement of the story. Here, it's very faithful to the original story. And maybe people will like this better. The word of mouth is not great, but it's decent. And I think that if you don't know the book, if you don't know any plot points, then this is probably going to work better for you. But for me, not.
Yeah, I feel like on Letterboxd, it was about a 3.5 when I had a look on Saturday. So
it's dropping. It's dropping.
It's dropping. Okay. Yeah.
Dropping.
Yeah,
I always find that very interesting
film.
when you see these early, like especially because Edgar Wright obviously has his fanboys on there. So it's interesting when you see like that initial reviews and then how it changes over time. I like once it is seen more broadly, not only in theaters, but I think like once this is on Paramount Plus or whatever streamer is going to have it, and then multiple millions of more people are going to see it, I do wonder if over time that score is going to continue to erode.
Interesting. It seems like a perfect movie for streaming to chuck on.
Okay, a couple of things before we get into the Edgar Wright breakdown. I wanted to just talk about the box office briefly because you already touched on it. The film, okay, so is Glen Powell a star or not? He's had a few very popular films recently, so I'm not sure this negates the fact that he might be a star or not. I have to say that even when I heard they were making this movie, I scratched my head because The Running Man, the book, is not one of Stephen King's most well-known books. Most people know the book at all because they know the movie and they saw it on cable. Because this movie, adjusted for inflation, the original Schwarzenegger movie, would have made about $100 million in today money if you adjust for inflation, on a budget that, if you adjust for inflation, would probably be around $90 million. This movie cost $110 million. It's Edgar Wright's biggest budget ever. And it won't make $100 million. But let's say it had made $100 million. That's really like the ceiling for a movie. So it's very unlikely it will break even in the best of circumstances, because this isn't the kind of IP that would have a huge following. This isn't as big even as RoboCop. If they made another RoboCop remake, that would probably be a more recognizable IP than this. So it's very strange to even make this film, to be honest with you. Are they just running out of IP? Like, I don't understand. Where did this come from?
I read something this morning that this was only popular in the older males demographic, or males over 25.
Yes, exactly.
So if you can't get the teenagers, you're not going to make that kind of money.
Exactly. Yeah. And so specifically, this had a $28 million opening weekend worldwide. And usually with good word of mouth, without great word of mouth, you would be lucky to triple that. And there's a few territories, some pretty big territories that hasn't opened in yet. But if you do the math on that, we're looking at a movie that's going to make $100 million, maybe slightly more. Internationally, $100 million on a $100 million budget. Like, for people who don't know movie math, you only keep half of what comes from the box office. And then there's money that comes in from DVDs and streaming and all this other money. So it's only a tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more money to be made. But the $100 million movie is just the production of the film. There's another $100 million that's in producer fees, advertisement. So this is a $200 million expense minimally. So there's no chance that this thing's going to break even. But my point is that even if the film had been better, even if it had opened 20% larger and had stronger word of mouth, it still wouldn't have broken even. Like, my point is, on paper, I don't know why you make this movie. I have to say, I don't know why you make this film. But at this cost, so let me say at this budget, if Edgar Wright, you think about like Baby Driver, had a pretty small budget, a very small budget by the standards of the scale of that film. And if you make a movie at that scale that makes $150 million internationally, yeah, that's going to make money. But you make a $200 million big sci-fi movie, and honestly, you probably look at the popularity of the original film and go like, well, maybe we make 200. Maybe there's a chance we make 200. I'm like, you're not going to break even. What's the point? It's very strange.
Just thinking, this IP, it could be like a week-to-week television series where you're satirizing television at the same time. You could have like cliffhangers at the end of each episode, and it could be a really tight series rather than a movie.
But that's why this doesn't make sense. You think about, once again, I can't help but think about this in conjunction with the Predator movie that just came out last week. And whether you like that film or not, the simple fact is like they want to integrate that with Alien. They want to have more Alien shows. They want to have another Alien versus Predator film for sure, right? So, and that movie, by the way, is going to make over 200 million, probably more than 250 million dollars worldwide. So it's definitely going to be profitable. But the point is that is a movie that they are thinking, how do we have more maybe Hulu animated movies, have another Alien versus Predator film, expand, maybe have multiple Alien shows. They just announced that Alien Earth is actually coming back for season 2. God knows when that'll come out. They want to extend the franchise for sure. And like I said, whether you think it works or not, that's their intention. That's an investment, that $100 million in the making that movie. This is a $100 million movie that, like you said, it's not setting up a Paramount Plus TV series. It's not extending the universe. To your point, they could have gone in a direction where this wasn't so closed ended in this particular story that just introduces the world. And yeah, you could imagine a Paramount Plus series where they have different people playing different ones of these games, and then different characters keep popping up, and maybe Glen Powell makes a cameo in one of these TV series at some point in the future. They did not do that in doing this film. So I don't understand the IP management here. And I know I'm talking about this not as a film of its own. I'm only talking about the IP of it. But you only make this film because it's IP. No one makes this film otherwise. Like, so it's just very strange. Very strange.
Very strange.
All right, let's talk about Edgar Wright's filmography. First of all, have you ever seen Spaced? Have you ever seen this TV series?
Oh, look, I've got a friend who's a big fan. I've never seen it myself.
Oh, it's so great. If you can find it, definitely check it out. It is so entertaining. Obviously, it's Edgar Wright and who are the other guys? Of course, I can't remember the names now.
Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
Simon Pegg, of course, and Nick Frost. Yeah. Yes. So they all wrote it together. He was the director. They were the writers and the stars. And that's how the partnership began. And they made this very low budget zombie film. And this is before zombies were a thing, right? This was only a year or two after 28 Days Later rejuvenated the zombie genre. And they make Shaun of the Dead. That's their first film. How do you like that one?
Love Shaun of the Dead. Love it. Was one of my favorite movies at the time. Yeah, really great when he's throwing his record collection at the zombies
Yes.
to try to chop their heads off, but he's finding all these good records and he just can't. He's like, no, not that one, not that one. Oh, that one. Yeah. Great film. Loved it. Loved the whole style and the real low budgetness of it. Yeah, it was great.
Next film is Hot Fuzz. What'd you think? How did you think about this one? So
yeah, I also enjoyed it. He's got so much energy in his filmmaking.
Yes.
And this one is like an action comedy, which is really difficult to do. And I thought he did really well.
Yeah, I love the chemistry between the two leads, of course. But for me, and maybe just because of my taste of genre, I loved Shaun of the Dead. Although once again, in general with his films, the third acts go on too long. I have rewatched Shaun of the Dead so many times, and I always either fast forward or just skip the third act, except for the button. That the final scene is fantastic, but that whole prolonged final sequence is a little too long for me. And honestly, this goes for just about all of his films. But I loved Shaun of the Dead. And then Hot Fuzz, the whole Michael Bay mix, because that's a lot of mixing of genres in his films, mixed with a folk horror and a slasher film, was a weird mix and didn't quite come together for me. But I love, like you said, I love all the action sequences. I love all the parodying of those 80s action films. So I appreciate it more than I really love the film the way I love Shaun of the Dead.
Yep.
And then I think he makes Scott Pilgrim. Is that his third? I think that's his next one. Well, how do you like
I think so.
Scott Pilgrim?
I never saw this in the cinema, but I rewatched it over and over at home. I think it's a real visual feast. I love the way that it's all about music and it's all about bands and different genres of music. So yeah, I rate this one quite highly.
I do too. This one is with Shaun of the Dead, my right in that higher pantheon. And I think it's funny when I've seen it so many times and I rewatched it here on a podcast. If anybody wants to hear the conversation, I have a friend of mine. She is a producer, an advertisement producer, and she's asking me to recommend something for her. She'd never seen Scott Pilgrim. So we watched it together and we had a conversation about it. And she was really upset by the ending of the film. And it was funny, even before I had the conversation, in rewatching it now, like in my middle age, I was like, man, he really did Knives Chaw really dirty there at the end. And then she's just, it's okay. And I'm like, man, this is a really bad ending. But I got to tell you, the first 20 times I watched that movie, I didn't think it was such a bad ending. I just was along for the ride. But of all his films, I think this is the until that ending. Again, I have problems with the ending. Until then, I think it's the one that works the best. There's so many jokes packed in here visually, like the whole Seinfeld joke where they're suddenly like inside of a Seinfeld episode. Stuff just emerges from the framing of the shot and all the video game references, of course. It's really an incredible achievement. A huge flop at the time, by the way. People were really anticipating this movie, but it's a great film. And I think so many people, there's a handful of people that saw it in the theaters when it first came out and loved it, but it was a flop. And then it was forgotten for a little period of time. But I think over time, this thing is a whole generation, another generation has watched this streaming. And this is an eternal film probably for him.
Yeah, I felt sad for Knives too.
Yeah, I really feel they did her really dirty. Then he does that World's End. So it's the third of these. And for me, the worst of the three Simon Pegg, Nick Frost films, but still has a lot of stuff to make it worth watching.
Do you know what? This one, I think I started watching it and I don't think I ever finished it. I just thought that the whole style of it was like, I've seen it before and I've seen him do it better.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't think I finished it, or if I did, it just doesn't register.
This was where the mashup doesn't work at all. There is a very earnest early on, like this guy who's the life of the party, the Simon Pegg character, who it's almost a sequel, thematically a sequel to Shaun of the Dead. The Shaun character who never wanted to grow up. He's like, I'm still the cool guy. And then we find out he's having this midlife crisis. Everything's falling apart. He's really a jerk. And they're going on this one more pub run. And there was a lot of these films, like a lot of these British films where it's like they get together for the class reunion and all these secrets come out or all the animosities come out. There was a whole subgenre of this, which they're obviously playing with in here. And then like literally in the third act, it's like, and then an alien invasion happens, which instead of like, now there's a zombie outbreak, it's like, now there's an alien invasion. And it's just shoehorned in there and it really doesn't work. And this is one that they're lesser. For me, it's near the bottom of his filmography.
Okay.
But then he follows it up with Baby Driver, which I think the first half hour of Baby Driver, man, is like perfect. I have watched that opening heist all the way through him doing the Harlem Shuffle. And like literally the lyrics to the songs are spray painted on the walls. They're on the coffee cup. It's like, it's all like perfectly timed and framed. And it is 30 minutes of everything I love about movies. And then the film goes on a little too long because it's like, it's basically like an anthology. There's like vignettes where we meet new characters, a different heist each time. And by the way, the ending of this film is, I think, his most successful ending. It still goes on too long, but I do think that last sequence is very strong in this particular film. But nothing can top. It's like the problem with Baby Driver, that first half hour of that movie is so perfect that the rest of the film kind of pales in comparison.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to watch that first half hour again because I was quite disappointed in
Really?
this
Okay.
film. I didn't believe the characters. I thought they were trying to be too cool, and it just didn't sell it for me. Especially John Hamm's character. For some reason, I just didn't believe him at all, even in this kind of heightened comedic world. But the way they use the music and the action, I remember spot on, and I just love films that have soundtracks where you can just put them on and the film comes back to life. Or there's music like involved, like he's got a tape that he puts in his car, right? And the tape, and the tape gives him the powers of stunt driving. But yeah, okay, that's a good tip.
I love
tip.
what he has
I'll
at one point, he has to
again.
rewind the tape to like cue up and they're like, go, but he has to like wait for the part of the song so he can start driving. It's really brilliant. And that's really great stuff.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, do check that out. I like John Hamm. There's a perfect example. I think John Hamm does work. He's very menacing in that final section. I think if that works for you, obviously it'll rate higher. And then we have Last Night in Soho. And I really do feel like he was trying to make a corrective by centering a woman in the story. This should work for me. I love this era the swinging 60s
Mm.
in London. I love the Hitchcock references. He's obviously doing some Polanski here, like Repulsion. Peeping Tom probably is a reference point here as well. And that just that genre of music, which I don't know much about that genre of music, but I love how, like when it's used in a movie, or if I watch a British movie from the 60s and just hearing that, it becomes this, teleports me to this kind of past I obviously never knew, but it's just really evocative. And this should have worked like gangbusters. And maybe it was the fact that when I saw the trailer for this, I'm like, this movie is going to be incredible. And then I just really was just so uninterested in the story. I love these actresses, by the way. What's her name? Mackenzie, Thomas and Mackenzie, and
Anya
Anya
Taylor-Joy.
Taylor-Joy, of course. And yeah, I love these two actresses. I couldn't be more excited for the film. And maybe that was my expectation point. It was just like, it just didn't work for me. It's beautifully made, impeccable, but it's just like, and the whole ending, which I'm not going to spoil here, but man, that whole last, not only did it drag on forever again, but I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like it just was not engaged at all by the end of the film.
I was disappointed by this one too. Yeah, I think I was just confused. I thought Anya
Yes.
Taylor-Joy was going to be the lead character, but
Yep.
then she's just this ghostly presence, or presence in the past. And I don't think she had enough of a role, or something that I wasn't expecting. I've got this thing where I just forget endings of films. So I think when I go in to watch films, they're always a surprise for me at the end, because my brain just
Like,
forgets what
I don't
happens in
remember
the
that.
third act.
You might have fallen asleep as what might have actually happened. So.
Yeah, possibly. I think, yeah, last night in Soho, I must have had a couple of snoozes through it. But yeah, just I was confused by this one.
Yeah. And it didn't really work for me. But I'm always rooting for us. And Running Man, unfortunately, he's in a cold streak for me. This one didn't work for me either. But I'm always rooting for him. And this is dovetailing back with our conversation about Del Toro last week. I love hearing this guy talk about filmmaking. He's obviously was a fan, just like Del Toro, getting to make movies. And he does things practically. This is another interesting thing I never thought about. But in the Running Man movie, there's that whole sequence where they're in Boston and they're shooting on actual locations. And I could have sworn that was a set. Again, I'm like, if I can't tell you're shooting in location, that's probably very expensive. And I don't know if it's worth the money if I think you're shooting on a set, or if it looks like you're shooting on a set anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, it was okay for me. I did enjoy when they went to Derry and they made a
Yeah,
big
of
point. They're
course.
in Derry. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what's going to happen? No, we're just calling it out because it's just
Is
for
it the
Stephen
year
King
that
fans.
we say if it's one of the it years, we have to wonder about that.
Yeah, possibly. Did you catch? There was a bit when they were in the change rooms before they went on the Running Man show, and they had to go to their locker, and there was names above the lockers, and there was like Nicholson, Spacek,
Oh, I didn't see
Walken,
that.
Sheen. So it was like the names were the last names of actors in other Stephen King in better Stephen King movies. Yeah,
Speaking
more
of Stephen
Easter
King,
eggs.
anything you want to say about Derry at all? Welcome to Derry.
I watched Welcome to Derry. Yeah, no, there's not much I want to say. I just want to see Taylor Page in her own show, because every
Yeah,
time she's on screen,
so
she's
good.
acting in a totally different level.
Yeah,
She's in a different show. She's just so real. She's everything. She's a mother. She's a lover. She's just a wife. She's excellent in whatever she's doing. And also, I also liked the guy that's playing the one with the shine, O'Halloran.
Halloran. Yeah,
Halloran, yep, I thought he's really coming to the fore in this series as well. I thought he was cool. I did like the idea about the indigenous people.
yeah,
I actually thought that was way more interesting, to be
yeah.
honest, the way that they've known of it this whole time, generations and generations before the white people came, and they'd found a way to contain it without interrupting it. I thought that was really cool. A little bit hokey the way they just did that as
Yeah.
a story, a
Mm-hmm.
child's story. Yeah, what did you think?
Yeah, I have all the same complaints. First of all, our favorite girl of the young cast
Oh,
had her eyes go into a jigsaw, so that's not
didn't
great.
like that. Why? Why did she do that to herself? Why?
Yeah,
Silly.
that's what you would do, of course.
Yeah, of
And
course.
and her friend is there, of course. I'm like, what's are they going to put her in the insane asylum? Like, are they going to think she did that, or is her friend going to throw her
Yeah.
under the bus and be like, she did it to me? I'm like, really? I honestly don't even care how that story is going to resolve. But I thought the Halloran thing with the Native American Daniel character, I liked that. Although at the same time, I felt it was like the laziest way you can have like an information dump. It's just like,
Totally.
but it was very cool. I liked the whole little flashback and that storyline. I didn't really like the way it was visualized. I have a lot of complaints about the CGI, but also just like the frame, just like this kind of very flat production for this show, which doesn't feel up to par with a lot of other HBO shows. But regardless of all of that, two things that it came to mind. One is I didn't know if this is really the direction that people who want to see an It show go in, but the fans still seem to be liking the show. The ratings have continued to be pretty solid. They've dropped from the start, but they're still pretty solid. Maybe this is working better for some people than for me. But the thing I was thinking about the most, by the way, here, Darren, I've been rewatching Stranger Things. I've only watched it once all the way through, and I watched it one season at a time. So when 4 years went by between seasons, I didn't rewatch. I just watched along just to be part of the cultural conversation. But my daughter's been rewatching the show, so I've seen most of it. As she watches it, I've seen probably 75% of it here and there. We sit down and watch at least an episode at night, and she watches some by herself, but we've seen most of it together. And there's so much pastiche in the Stranger Things show. It shouldn't even work, but it does, even though it's borrowing so many other elements. And I was thinking about it in conjunction with Derry last night. You know what's missing from Welcome to Derry? Stranger Things is fun. It's scary sometimes, but it's funny sometimes. You love these characters, and it is fun. And where is the fun in this Derry show, man? How are you going to watch this for multiple seasons? There's no single character on this show that I really, every time I'm like, ooh, what's going to happen to them? I don't even know who I'm supposed to be paying attention to on the show, to be honest.
You're right. There's no fun. There's no laughs. Yeah. I wish I was in more of the Stranger Things cultural conversation. I just watch it. My girls are always watching it. They're always looking at it, especially the last few weeks leading up to this next season. I'm like, wish I was into it. But yeah, I think I'm a bit far back to catch up now.
All right. So last thing to bring up with you, Darren, is that I was trying to think of something we can watch next week. I am probably going to watch Train Dreams, which is supposed to be really good. I almost watched it. Yes, Joel Edgerton. So definitely check that out if you want to. I will definitely be watching it. I almost saw it at the film festival, but I'm like, I could only see a couple of films at Montclair Film Festival last month. And I'm like, this is going to be on Netflix soon. So I'm going to just watch it on Netflix. So I will not previewed this at all, but I really very much want to see it. And I've heard nothing but great things about it. So that's something we could discuss. But Darren, since we do not have much to talk about next week, no big releases. Wicked is coming out, but I don't think we're going to talk about that. Although I may end up seeing it because my daughter is excited to see it. It's possible that we will see it whether we like it or not. But I was thinking we could finally start our rewatch of The Watchmen rather than watching Welcome to Derry.
Yeah, I did think about that last night when I was watching Welcome to Derry. I was like, I'd just rather be watching The Watchmen.
And that's exactly how I felt. I literally struggled to finish the 1 hour, 6-minute episode of all of these episodes have been over an hour long. And that's all I was thinking about. I'm like, I could be watching 1.5 episodes of Watchmen right now. Why am I doing this to myself? And I think that's exactly what we're going to do next week. I will probably talk about Stranger Things the week after that, but probably not a ton of more to discuss until we start covering Fallout in December. So yeah, let's do like 2 episodes next week. And then we'll watch a couple more the week after that.
Okay. Yep. Let's do that. This Train Dreams, I don't know anything about it, so maybe don't tell me anything about it.
I don't know anything about it. I think it's loosely based on a true story. It takes place like in the 1880s or something. I think it's a very small story. Felicity Jones is in it as well. I'm not a huge fan of hers, but I hear she's very good in this. So like, let's see how that goes. But
I'm
I do think it's
of Joel Edgerton. I think he's always fantastic in anything he's in. He's very considered actor, and so I'm interested in
they say he could get an Academy Award nomination for this, so we'll see.
Oh wow. Yeah. Oh, good on him. Yeah, good on you, Joel.
So yeah, I've been looking forward to this. Honestly, I know very little about it. I've been looking forward to it because I'm a fan of his and just this universal praise for it. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot.
Let's do it. Train Dreams, Watchmen, maybe Derry. Maybe.
I don't know.
We're this far.
I got to tell you that 1 hour and 6 minutes yesterday, I watched an episode, a season finale of Stranger Things with my daughter yesterday. And I'm like, oh my God, I forget these season finales are an hour and a half long.
Oh,
The
wow.
Derry episode felt much longer than the 1.5 hours of Stranger Things.
And I'm sure, yeah, Stranger Things was way more entertaining, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Definitely more entertaining. All right, Darren, thank you again for the conversation.
Great. Cheers, Victor.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.